you, Maya, for such a beautiful introduction. Hopefully, like everyone can hear me uh, loud and clear. So let me start with that. And I think like Maya did an amazing introduction, but let me do a small or let's say a bit additional introduction of Draslovka and what we do and where we are. So basically, for as Maya said, like I'm chairman of the BPD. We are doing a lot of other stuff, including real estate and including renewable energy. But well, one of my biggest passions is that I'm also CEO of Draslovka, which is an international and global company that's active in three business fields. Basically, we are in mining process solutions, agricultural solutions, specialty chemicals. And as you know, like all these three are playing a major role in India as well. So I'm going to touch base on that a bit later. Uh, I would say that like from our point of view, we have quite a lot of experience with many countries. So as you can see on this map, we are active in many jurisdictions. So we are in Australia, New Zealand, India. We are in South Africa, like in almost every European country, to be honest, including like a business substance in almost every European country. In the whole North America, I would say now, and hopefully we don't have any Mexican in here, but like unfortunately we were also in Mexico and we're trying to establish a manufacturing facility in Mexico, which didn't play too well for us. And I can touch based on that, like why, like we are now like looking for, let's say, more stability, and we also have quite a significant supply chain and footprint in Latin America, so in South America. So a big portion of what we say from the size point of view to understand our capabilities, we have like right now we operate like three production units, like with four regional terminals, active in about 80 countries, more than $500 million in sales, about 740 people, give or take, and a lot of things like in our pockets. So we, as Amaya said, we acquired a big portion of Chemours, we acquired a portion of Stasso, which we are still like fighting for to close the transaction on. Then like several companies and very efficient in tech. I think this all is very important because again, at the same time, like we have pretty strong boards, good level of advisors, and a lot of new solutions that we are bringing on the market. So that's just a brief introduction of who we are. And now, like to basically, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go to the key topic of like why India and what we do. So I'm going to try to touch base on three or couple of critical topics. So first, like what we do in India, right? And why India for us is an important and interesting country to look at. But before I will go there, let me shortly cover why for us this diversification that was already covered by my colleagues on this call is so important. Uh, I think like we have an elephant in the room, I think, in today's business that people are sometimes like not very open to talk about. And so let me call that elephant out right away. There are very strong geopolitical forces right now. And I think the globalization in general is over. And at the same time, we're living in a super volatile world, maybe thanks to this like new shift in geopolitical forces. And I think we're coming to the period where there's going to be one of the biggest shifts in the geopolitics, as well as with reallocation and repositioning on wealth and power. And it's all just about to going to happen. Why? I think a lot of that has been covered, but just my 5 cents on that. You're looking on many forces. So transformation of energy sector being one of them. Then very dynamic transformations towards data and digitalization and AI-driven society that is very innovation-driven. You can see innovation everywhere we go, and we can see that basically as we see the middle class growing, like a lot of environmental, there's a lot more focus on environmental aspects, on the quality of life, and I think in the scale that we never seen before. And at the same time, like you are still having this super massive growth of the population, especially like in the Asian region and in Africa. So it results to a significant less dependency on oil and gas with all these new innovations and this transformation of energy, and much bigger importance of critical minerals. While I think many people now see that the critical minerals like gold, copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, zinc, and even like uranium these days is becoming a 21st century oil and gas. And together with all that in this innovation-driven society, technology and knowledge becomes a critical importance. I think it was never higher. So the whole new value chains are being created around this, and these value chains, thanks to these huge issues that we have seen over the last, and this huge volatility that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, first like COVID, then disruption of the supply chain between like Asia, Europe, US. Like we have seen so many black swans landing on the lake over the last 5 years, like again, never before. And therefore, like these new value chains that are being created are much more focused like on just in case than only focus on price and just in time as they were in the past. So that was just the entrance to that. And now like why India is actually able to help with that. So I would say India is playing really a major role in digitalization of the world over the last 20 years. As I think Maya and like as it was already said on this call many times, India is great in service, and I think a big portion of this new infrastructure that some countries just need to establish is already established in India, and that was like for us one of the key reasons like why we're considering India. There are very reasonable taxes and a good amount of tax incentives that you can have specifically in the manufacturing sectors. Again, was partially covered by Amaya, and I could just confirm that. And I think that India is expected by most of the global advisors and global to become a global leader in this transformation. And it is becoming one of the fastest growing economies out there with significantly and fast growing middle class. And on top of all that, it is, at least for us coming from Europe and US, a very stable country with a good regulatory environment. And I would say even more importantly, with a functional and a reliable law enforcement system. Because even though there's a great regulation, sometimes like some countries are not that efficient with when we're enforcing that. Because at least for us as an innovative company that is bringing change and transformation in mining and agriculture and specialty chemicals, protection of our IP was and is and will be always one of our top priorities. And like then when you look at what happened and what is still happening in some of these, let's say, low IP driven, low IP oriented countries, India is a clear winner when you come to all like these aspects. And I would even go deeper by saying that when we looked on India and when we looked and compared it with many other countries, you can see that India is actually having like a whole, I would say that whole value chain that enables that transformation within the country. What I mean by that, basically, you need to have an educational system and academia and knowledge centers that are creating and fostering your talent and that are creating and initiating all these new ideas at the academia. So new ideas, new products, like new prototypes are being created there. Then you need this entrepreneurship culture that will help to actually foster them and grow them. And as again, it was said on this call, so I'm happy that this is all aligned. You can see a very strong startup environment in India that are then willing and able to take these ideas and prototypes and grow them into functional products and businesses. And the next step is clearly a strong financial and investment sector that supports the further growth of these companies so they can scale them up. Again, this is available already, and there is a culture and experience with doing that. And last but not least, you need a strong industry that creates a local market and local demand for these products and are willing to pay for them because you are helping them to bridge some of their key problems and issues. So what it means for us, for Draslovka in our case, and for BPD, I believe, however, I believe this is valid for all the stakeholders. And this translates in having very highly qualified labor, great pool of talent that's extremely strong in technical and service capabilities, and as Maya said, at a very affordable price when you compare it with any other country. You have minimum language barrier because like everyone in India speaks great English, and that helps you in this environment because I would say that the business world just switched to English in most of the places. You get fundamentally and fast growing purchasing power at the local end user market. And again, I would say very reasonable prices of raw materials and utilities with a stable grid in comparison with other African countries. This is worthless. And this all combined means that you have a reasonable capex. When we as Draslovka, which is chemical industry, right, and it's very capital intensive. And when you look on your capex in India versus the other countries, you are significantly saving because there's a local steel, local production of almost anything that we need for chemistry. I cannot speak for all the industries, but for chemical, especially chemical, as well as like kind of say a special industry, including that needs a bit more of stainless steel, and highly qualified like valves and data-driven systems. India is have it all in house. And since it has all these qualities for us, it was never hard to find financing for growth and M&A transactions that were based in India. So, and last but not least, when you look at how India is geographically positioned, it's a great place to deliver towards almost any place in the world. And you can see that India, for us, is at least becoming something like the Switzerland of Asia, where like they are quite neutral. They are having good relationships with most of the countries in Asia, good relations with Europe, as well as good relations towards the East, as well to the West, and which allows it to have a very good bilateral trade agreements that are helping you to save a ton of money when you are trying to establish a local production value chain that is focused on the export. So now like to what we have in India. So basically Draslovka Services India was our first move to understand the country. Why we started with that? We started with agriculture because that's the most logical because India is growing very heavily. And we basically focused on the initial years to understand the country, understand the regulatory and cultural environment, understand how the local market works from the market dynamics, what are the raw materials and utilities and how they're priced. Basically, understand and test some of these bilateral agreements if they really are actionable and workable, and basically find the right partners, which I believe was one of the most difficult thing to understand. Like if you have the right people at the right places, and if we're talking to the right decision makers. And this now allowed us to get us to a position where we're able to expand. So we now believe we have the right partners. We believe that we have the right structure in place, so we can actually scale up and build on that knowledge. And we understand the country a little better, both from cultural as well as from, let's say, market dynamics point of view. And now, like, we are expanding on sales and marketing capabilities. So it gets Draslovka to the point where we are thinking and very seriously considering India to become our new hub for production of chemicals and for service sector. So we are now heavily considering of moving a big portion of our shared resource center services into India, including R&D. We focused a lot more on support and sales of licenses because we do a lot of technology licensing globally. And we are now also exploring a right location and the right structure to establish our chemical specialty production and chemical specialty as well as the mining solutions production value chain. So hydrogen cyanide, sodium cyanide, glycine, DPG, chemical specialties, like you name it. Why? Like, because again, everything seems to be available locally and it's a good location to be in. How we see this in comparison with other countries, honestly, we narrowed down all the countries that we looked for our MENA and Asian value chain for all this from all these point of views to just 3 countries. So, which is UAE, Saudi Arabia, and India. India currently being on one of the top of the list of these countries. And we will be heavily focusing on making some FID decision of where to go with the production part of our business within the next 3 to 6 months for the value chain that's going to be serving this local part. I'm speaking very nicely so far, so let me cover also some of the challenges during our journey. There were quite a few, quite some. Very honestly, when we started to establish the company a few years ago, it was a bit of a nightmare. Like we didn't know where to go. We didn't know how to start it. Like we tried to establish the structure where we had the European directors as the Indian company in India, and it was a total nightmare. Like it took us ages to get that, get all the documents translated. The KYC for opening accounts were like super heavy. But from the second experience that we had just recently, it become a lot easier. So I think a lot of you, if you don't have an existing value chain, you're going to be safe from that like heavy experience. And it just basically demonstrates and underlines all the information that you were receiving through this presentation of my colleagues, that India, I think, did a big step ahead in making it easier to establish operations for the foreign direct investment. And that's why you can see, that's why there was so much foreign direct investment coming to India over the last few years. I think we were trying to understand the country and do a lot of work ourselves. And I think we wasted a lot of time and a lot of energy on that. Uh, we also because we haven't used the right channels. We didn't use the right approach. We were not addressing the right issues because we were actually applying the same set of knowledge and experience that we had from Europe and US when establishing the Indian operations. And really just the culture and everything was slightly different. And we're thinking like, we're big, we know like how to do it, and that didn't help. We used some big, large advisory houses to give us an opinion in India. And as we were finding later on from what we were being fed and what they gave us, a lot of that was just so quite far from the reality that we have seen. So let me convert it to some advice on the key success factors that I believe you can follow in order to save you guys some money and make it easier for you to enter. Number one, I would say avoid a DIY approach. Don't do it yourself. Find a good local agencies. I think like India now offers a great, let's say, I would say soft landing, and as my colleagues were saying, almost a red carpet when you are coming there. It wasn't that well available when we were entering. Just make use of it. It will save you a ton of time and ton of energy and a lot of frustration. Find the right partner. I will name another elephant in the room. Like, India is extremely trust-based economy and trust-based culture. And if you find yourself a good local partner that will help you to navigate and open doors for you and open the right network for you, again, you will save a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and these partnerships like heavily pays off. I would say that start being successful when we formed a partnership like that. The everything was a lot easier for us, and actually we benefited from that extremely when it comes also in a relationship outside of India. So go local and do some networking. Uh, Again, last but not least, India is a great place for doing business in our understanding. We are already doing business there, and we are only thinking of scaling that business and expanding the business. We never thought about downscaling that business. We actually are just looking in the right way of how we will expand and increase our exposure in India. But it's not a silver bullet. So it's not a silver. There are some value chains that might not be as efficient like to be done in India, and you need to you need to do your own diligence to understand if this is a good fit for your business. I can only speak for AI driven mining solution services, advanced analyzers, specialty chemicals, mining solutions, and agricultural solutions. It's a great place to be. For everything else, I can tell you, from the feeling that I have from the country and like how uh, open and welcoming the country is for the foreign direct investment, I believe it is, but it needs to be a diligence done on your side. So that's about it. Like very much open to questions, and thank you for having me once again. It's a pleasure to work and be in India.
Thank you, Pavel. Thank you very much for that presentation. If there are any questions, we are happy to take them.
Hi, Pavel. My name is Prarthana. I'm looking after FMT. It's a Swedish company. We are thinking of moving our production to India. Just the production. It's not just not we are not starting our own entity in India, for example. My question is about the labor force. Of course, there were a lot of positive indication about the labor force is knowledgeable, but in practicality, uh, how good is it? I mean, compared to Sweden, I mean, where our skill levels, even on the lower level, is quite high. You don't need too many supervisors, so you have a very lean production organization where the instructions goes down to the floor level quite well. But when you do that in India, where there's a big gap between a supervisor and a floor level, how has that changed over the years, and do you see a change practically?
Very honestly, like we see a lot of change, and it's really about your structure. I don't know if you're only speaking about like moving the production in terms of sourcing, so you're going to be outsourcing that to some of the local sourcing partner. But if you will establish, and let's say establishing a production facility, if you will establish the production facility in the European or slash US style, it's perfectly doable. Perfectly doable. Like the qualification of the labor is extremely high. However, like the cost of the higher quality labor is higher, right? I can compare between all the countries that you've seen. So we have operations in South Africa, we have operations in, and I mean quite significant operations in Australia, significant operations in New Zealand, quite good operations in India, huge operations in US, Europe, whole Benelux region with many, many people.
Right.
India, by far, no matter what quality level you're talking about, is on the lowest end of the spectrum when it comes to cost, at the same par of qualification and knowledge. So you can build it that way, but don't expect to achieve it at these very low pay per employee, as you've seen in the presentation. Even if I compare it with Czech, and to be honest, Czech Republic, and European regulation, Czech Republic is probably like half of what you pay in Germany or in Sweden, right? So that's why we have still a big portion of our corporate shared services in Europe. Now we're thinking about moving it to India because, to be honest, like we see that we can have the same quality still at half what we pay in Czech. So you're still speaking about a quarter of what you would pay in Sweden at the same quality level, really same quality level, great talent. So you can build it that way, right? But it's not that cheap as and I would say it's super fair price. It's still really like half of what we pay in Czech is what we pay in India at a super high quality, because the cost of living in Czech significantly increased, unfortunately, over the last 5 years. So it's no longer what it used to be. So I would say that right now the quality and cost is what Czech Republic was about 10 years ago or 7 years ago.
Okay, and you spoke about, thanks a lot. You spoke about the stainless steel and steel that you used. In terms of the material cost, is that relatively cheaper in India? If you consider the same quality of Europe and India, can you buy the same thing cheaper in India? Is that true?
Yeah, like honestly, like our CapEx, when we recently done the exercise, so these numbers are very fresh. So basically, we looked on expanding our capacity in the US, in Memphis, where we have a big plant. Then in Europe, in Czech Republic, in Kolín, and then we were looking on at the other regions that I named. So specifically, KSA, UAE, Egypt, and India. Egypt and India. Egypt is slightly worse quality and slightly lower price. India is still about half, give or take, on what we would pay anywhere else for CapEx. At the same, again, comparable quality. I'm comparing apples with apples. So it's not like 1/3 of what you can save in CapEx, but even you go with highest quality suppliers, you are looking on 30% to 40% reduction in your CapEx versus any other country, any other country that I just named. Versus US, it's day and night. Like you cannot even compare that. Versus Central Eastern Europe, like Czech Republic, you're looking at about like 30-40% less than what we would pay there. Don't forget that Indian specialty chemical industry and car manufacturing industry is extremely developed. Like and I think like it's somewhere else. When I think what people think India is and what India really is again a day and night over the last X amount of years. All these companies, all these international producers are having their big operations in India, especially in specialty chemicals. Specialty chemicals, amazing place, and they use everything. They use like DCS, they use like PLCs, DCS systems, high quality valves, high quality steel, high quality stainless steel, and it's all in there because like they keep like run and maintain their facilities. They keep increasing their CapEx, so it's really available there. And the quality of locally sourced products like is great. And also, if you cannot source it locally, still there the local bilateral agreements for import and export are giving you a very good position to like get even imported materials for a very affordable price.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. My last question. The protection of IP. I don't know whether it was you or Amaya spoke about that. Why did you say why did you say it was better? Or because if the knowledge level is high, don't you think the IP protection is actually at a little bit more risk than I couldn't understand why you said.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the enforcement I was speaking about, right? Because it's to be honest, people in any place in the world, you find smart people that can copy what you do, right?
Yeah.
The difference though is how he protects and enforces that IP. So basically, if you if you file a claim for breach of the freedom to operate,
Yeah.
right? Like how the country treats that.
Okay.
Because and that's the difference, right? Because there are countries that listen, like we have a lot of patents in some of the Asian countries. I will not name which ones, but like we have a lot of IP there. We are having breaches. We report that, and the
Okay.
country says, and it takes ages, and there's no action. It's teatless. It's
Okay.
absolutely teatless.
Understood.
Even
All
though
right.
you get patent, it's teatless. In India, it's not teatless at all.
Okay. Understood. So enforcing is
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
for the I mean, there's a mechanism in place to
yeah.
take
To
care of
enforce that,
that
exactly.
happen.
To
Okay.
enforce
All
that,
right.
you
Got
can
you.
still lose it. Don't get me wrong. Actually,
Of
they're
course.
super smart people, right? So, but they're everywhere super smart. Everywhere they're super smart people.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the issues we had with China. I mean, it was,
You're not alone.
it was a key issue with China, like but we don't want to be in the same situation when this happens. So it's good points, I would say. So thank you very much.
Yeah.